climb into your comfiest tracksuit, dust off your best Cockney rhyming slang, and prepare to shout "Core Blimey Governor" at an inanimate object.
Hello, Governor! Holy crap, it's real!
Because today we're taking a trip into the cultural heart of my home, England. And by cultural heart, I of course mean a budget PlayStation 2 racing game released in 2006 that pretty much nobody remembers. And with good reason. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the internet series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, then I play them, review them, and rank them. So to start off 2026, we had a data design disaster with Urban Extreme. And unfortunately this week we've got another dud developed by those Muppets over at Data Design. This is London Taxi Rush Hour, or as the game insists on spelling it, Rush Hour as one word and one H. No space, no mercy, and no respect for the English language. So yes, developed by Data Design Interactive and released during the PS2's later years, London Taxi Rush Hour is one of those games that feels like it exists in a strange parallel universe. One where Crazy Taxi happened, but Sega didn't notice, and a small British studio tried to recreate it with pocket money, a map of London, and what I assume was a single stressed out programmer, slowly but surely losing the will to live. So today we're going to take a look back at this game, and what it was trying to do, what it actually did, and why it kinda serves as a fascinating little artifact from the bargain bin era of PlayStation 2 gaming. So buckle up, get your taxi meter running, and for the love of God, don't touch the curb. So London Taxi Rush Hour begins, as many PS2 games do, with a loading screen. Not a particularly interesting loading screen, mind you, just the usual static imagery while the console quietly questions its life choices and as to why you've inserted this disc inside it. But it eventually gives way to the title screen proper. And it's here where the game makes its first bold statement, and that statement being, "We are not going to impress you." A lineup of colourful characters stare back at you, all of whom look less like people and more like rejected mascots for a third-tier car insurance company. They're smiling way too much, and that's the kind of smile that suggests they know something you don't, and that knowledge is deeply unpleasant. This is also where you encounter the game's greatest crime. That's Rush Hour, all one word. Every time I say it, a small part of me dies. Rush Hour is two words, two perfectly good words, separating them was free, and yet here we are. The second problem becomes apparent almost immediately as well. The very concept of this game is fundamentally broken. A taxi in London at rush hour. That's not so much escapism as it is masochism. You don't need a video game to recreate that experience, you can just simply sit in a warm metal box and stare angrily at brake lights and set fire to money in your own home. The immersion is basically identical. I live in a city and never ever on my drive home from work have I ever thought, I'd love to recreate this experience of sitting in traffic at home in a video game.
You have to seize the goddamn cab! People are so goddamn inefficient! Oh, god damn it!
Before we get driving, London Taxi Rush Hour offers a small selection of menus and options. They exist, and that's about all you can say for them. There's a tutorial, where I use the term tutorial very loosely. It's less a learning experience and more an instruction manual that someone read aloud to you while you weren't listening. And then again, we have that 3D rendered PS2 controller, which I was praising very highly in Urban Extreme. So I guess they just made the model once and just put it in all their games, so I retract that nicety about that. Anyway, then we have the game modes. There's time games, which is make as much money as possible within a set time limit, so like kind of classic Crazy Taxi. Money games, which is reach a target amount of cash with no time limit, and Perfect Day, which is no time limit, no money limit, and just vibes, really. Perfect Day sounds idyllic, doesn't it? Maybe it will let me drive around London not in rush hour on like a quiet Sunday, but sadly, that does not happen. Instead, it's the mode you'll spend most of your time in if you're trying to unlock everything, because it's the least punishing way to grind collectibles without losing the will to live. Now before we go any further, if you're a fan of racing games, or in this case, terrible bargain bin racing games, then why not hit that subscribe button and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. And whilst you're at it, if you want to support the channel any further, then please check out my Patreon using the link in the description below. Over on my Patreon you can get access to cool goodies like early access to videos and your name in the credits of every single upload. And at the moment there's even a discount which is in the pinned comment down below, so a perfect time to check it out. Anyway, enough selling myself to you, let's go on a London taxi journey. So for today's journey, I'll be playing as Andy, because unlocking characters in this game is an ordeal, and honestly, life is too short. Andy is a man with a face permanently locked into what I can only describe as the DreamWorks eyebrow expression. He looks like he's constantly reacting to something mildly impressive. But there's no voice acting in London Taxi Rush Hour, but in my head, I would say Andy sounds exactly like Jason Statham doing his strongest hardman impression while chewing gravel. Andy drives a standard Hackney-style cab, no gimmicks, no flair, just a box on wheels with dreams of violence. Here he is at the start of his shift, ready to kick ass and deliver passengers, and unfortunately for passengers, he's all out of ass. So now it's time for the big reveal. Is London Taxi Rush Hour a Crazy Taxi inspired game, or is it actually just Crazy Taxi? Well, let's not dance around it. Of course it's just Crazy Taxi. It's not inspired by it, it's not influenced by it. It is Crazy Taxi, just filtered through a budget lens and relocated to a city famous for congestion, narrow streets, and soul-crushing traffic. You drive like a lunatic, you pick up passengers, you deliver them as fast as possible, you ignore traffic laws, physics, and common decency. The similarities are not subtle. The character select screen uses a near-identical bold font, destinations are marked with large green boxes, there are ramps attached to trucks for jumping. The entire game structure screams we played Crazy Taxi once, wrote everything down, then came back to it a year later. I was genuinely shocked there wasn't a legally distinct knockoff of All I Want blaring through the speakers when I started driving. I mean, hey, at least Simpsons Road Rage had the audacity to be good. Instead, I provided my own soundtrack by yelling "yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah" every time I picked up a fare. Come on, I wasn't going to sing for you guys. Yeah, 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 yeah! So the passengers in London Taxi Rush Hour are pretty easy to find. Why? Because they are the only pedestrians in the entire city. London, which is a city of like 9 million people, has apparently been reduced to about 12 individuals who all desperately need taxis at the same time. They appear on the minimap, stand perfectly still, and wait patiently for you to arrive. You can park next to them or directly on top of them, because they have no collision detection whatsoever. But before they'll get in, there's a catch. Your taxi has to be clean. Yes, cleanliness matters. As you plough through traffic, scrape walls and cause vehicular chaos, your cab accumulates dirt. If it gets too filthy, passengers will refuse to enter, forcing you to collect cleaning power-ups scattered around the map. It's a neat idea, which is something Crazy Taxi actually didn't do. Unfortunately, it barely matters. Cleaning pickups are literally everywhere, and it takes an eternity for your taxi to become dirty enough for this to actually be a problem. The mechanic exists, it functions, and then it quietly excuses itself from relevance. Once a passenger is on board, they'll tell you where they want to go. Often it's a famous London landmark, Buckingham Palace, the Houses of Parliament, the Tate Gallery. Other times it's something far more vague, like the restaurant. Ah yes, London's single restaurant. Renowned worldwide for serving, food. Is it the Ivy? Is it a kebab shop that only opens at 2 in the morning? Who knows? Andy decides that one. I don't even know how accurate the game's London is because I refuse to drive around the city. Mostly because my car's so old I'd have to pay to go in anyway, but also, walking is free, the tube isn't that expensive as far as I remember, so I just refuse to drive in there. Anyway, the driving in London Taxi Rush Hour is an exercise in controlled chaos. Traffic laws absolutely do not exist. The traffic lights are just there for pure decoration. Other drivers operate under a strict every vehicle for itself mantra. Cars mount pavements, buses ram you from behind and in front, to be honest. Everything is actively trying to kill you and each other. And honestly, that part is kind of fun for about 5 minutes. This is exactly how a game like this should feel, a polite tea-drinking version of Mad Max, where instead of gasoline wars, everyone is just late for something. Stopping next to a passenger can actually be impossible because a double-decker bus has just introduced itself to your rear bumper at top speed. It's not a complaint so much because this is probably what it's like being a taxi driver in London. but it can be quite infuriating. So let's talk about how the game looks, because it's not great, guys. The pop-in is quite aggressive, buildings appear suddenly like they've just remembered they were supposed to exist. The draw distance isn't great, it's like the horizon is more of a suggestion than a certainty. It's tempting to say this game looks like a PS1 title at times, but that's actually unfair to the PS1 because Gran Turismo was a thing. This feels more like an early PS2 game that never quite finished loading or finished development. There is somewhat of a vague charm to this low-poly aesthetic, but I don't believe for a second it was remotely intentional. This is not Katamari Damacy, this is £7 worth of ambition. And whilst we're talking about disappointments, what about the gameplay loop? Well, the crazy taxi part, that's the game. Pick up passenger, drop off passenger, repeat. There's nothing wrong with that loop in principle. Taxi games live and die by how good the driving feels, but unfortunately, this is where London Taxi Rush Hour truly collapses. So yeah, handling. For a game about urgency, London Taxi Rush Hour feels weirdly slow. You never feel like you're truly building speed, and even when you are boosting, the camera zooms out to suggest you're going fast rather than actually delivering that feeling. Journeys are short, the crashes are frequent, and momentum is constantly interrupted. But the handling is just worse. At low speed, the taxi turns on a sixpence. At high speeds, it becomes both sluggish and hypersensitive, resulting in constant wobbling as you fight to maintain just a straight line. Using ramps is an act of faith, and drifting is just a blatant lie because it doesn't work. The handbrake doesn't let you power slide around corners, it mostly just stops you dead and rotates the car 90 degrees and sends you on your way like nothing ever happened. If drifting isn't fun in an arcade driving game, something has gone very incredibly, tragically wrong. But none of that is the worst part, because the real villain of this game isn't Andy himself, it's not the handling, it's not the traffic, it's the goddamn curbs. The curbs are fully modelled, they have collision detection, and they are evil. Sometimes you'll roll over them smoothly, very rarely. Sometimes they'll fling your taxi at a random angle like a roulette wheel of pain. Sometimes you'll get stuck on them entirely with wheels locked, forcing you to either follow the pavement or violently wrestle the dodgy steering. Driving on pavement should be encouraged in a game like this. Instead, it's a gamble every time you touch the edge of the road. If you removed the curbs, the game would instantly become a lot better. They don't ruin London Taxi Rush Hour, they define the entire experience. The game is built around these crappy curbs. To the game's credit, the landmarks are at least recognisable. The Houses of Parliament look like a chunky PS2 approximation of themselves, which I actually kind of enjoy. Not out of patriotism, don't get me wrong, but because they remind me of early 2000s games where everything looked like a cereal box. The Tate Gallery is here too, looking like the Tesco Value version of itself. Slightly off, but close enough that you know what it's meant to be. The map layout, as I said, I can't tell if it's properly accurate, but it seems decent enough. Someone clearly cared enough to get some of the planning mostly right, even if the buildings don't resemble reality much beyond the shape and the rough location. Another cool part is you can also drive into the tube. It's not particularly exciting, but it's a novelty shortcut complete with long, slow stairs and a couple of confused pedestrians that still want to be picked up by a taxi. Why are they in the tube waiting for a taxi? I don't know, who knows, but it's kind of funny. Now, interestingly, this game actually features collectibles and in turn unlockables. Scattered around the map are these bulldog tokens, and if you collect them, you unlock characters. And there are a lot of these tokens. Some are hidden cleverly, others require lining up jumps with the game's terrible handling. After quite a lot of playing, I unlocked exactly one new character. Her name is Stacy. She is alarmingly cheerful, her car is red, she drives exactly the same as Andy, and there are no meaningful differences between the characters, which makes the grind feel completely pointless. There are 4 characters overall, and each one has a different coloured car variant, which again, handles exactly the same. So there is no point in collecting these tokens and unlocking these characters whatsoever, because you'll have the exact same experience regardless of who you play as. Now, in terms of critical response, I found just one review for London Taxi Rush Hour, and this was from the official PlayStation 2 magazine UK, who gave it a 20 out of 100. and the user score for the game on Metacritic is about 4.5 out of 10, so not good either. Interestingly, the game did get released later on the Nintendo Wii, but I can only imagine that was 10 times worse because that would have had motion controls. So now the time has come to rank London Taxi Rush Hour within our worst racing games tier list. Now the other two Data Design Interactive games have ended up in pure evil. Now I will say that Rush Hour at least tries to do something a bit more different from the other two Data Design titles we've played. Yeah, it's a Crazy Taxi knockoff, but hey, they added the cleanliness thing, there were collectibles within the city, there was actually like a minimal amount of effort put in because they actually had the license for the London Taxi. I don't know, it's still not great, but for me, I think I'm going to put this game in rubbish. It's not pure evil because there is some attempt to make a somewhat half-assed game, but it's still really bad, so it's going to be rubbish for me. So what do you guys think of London Taxi Rush Hour? Are you a fan? I really hope you're not, because it's not a good game. And would you rank it any differently? If you want to put it in pure evil, I honestly wouldn't even dispute that. Just for me, it's staying in rubbish. So that takes us to the end of our look at London Taxi Rush Hour, and with it this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap the bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. A massive shout out to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support, and all I really have left to say is thanks, and bye bye.